Hello again, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Monday the 12th of December. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. Today is provisionally the coldest day in the UK since 2010, with temperatures in Braemar only reaching -9.3 according to the Met Office. I hope that you're keeping safe and keeping warm tonight. This evening, I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 292 of the illegal Russian war of aggression and imperial ambition. Then I will introduce our guest for this evening, and then together we will discuss today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. Ukraine attacked a barracks in the Russian-occupied city of Melitopol over the weekend, with some Ukrainian sources claiming scores of Russian casualties. According to witnesses, 10 explosions were heard, although some of those may have been from Russian anti-aircraft systems. The strike on the southeastern city, reportedly with HIMARS rockets, was one of several on Russian bases. Explosions were also reported early on Sunday in the Russian-occupied Crimea, including Sevastopol and Simferopol. Emergency crews were working to ease power shortages in many parts of Ukraine after Russian attacks. Russian forces used Iranian-made drones to hit two energy plants in Odessa on Saturday, knocking out power to about 1.5 million customers. 2 people were killed and another 5 wounded after Russian troops shelled the southern Ukrainian region of Kherson, according to local authorities. And Russia still wants to extend control over all of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. That's according to the UK Ministry of Defence. The Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, thanked his US counterpart, Joe Biden, for his unprecedented defence and financial assistance during a phone call on Sunday. A Russian-installed official in eastern Ukraine has claimed that Ukrainian forces attacked a hotel where members of Russia's private Wagner military group were based, killing many of them. Some Russian officers fighting in Ukraine are unhappy with the military top brass and President Vladimir Putin because of the poor execution of the war, Igor Girkin, a right-wing nationalist Russian blogger, said after he visited the conflict zone. An international team of legal advisors has been working with local prosecutors in Ukraine's recaptured city of Kherson to gather evidence of alleged sexual crimes by Russian forces. A neo-Nazi paramilitary group linked to the Kremlin has asked its members to submit intelligence on border and military activity in Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia, raising concerns over whether far-right Russian groups are planning an attack on NATO countries. European Union foreign ministers and G7 leaders are meeting today to try to agree on further sanctions on Russia and Iran and an additional €2 billion for arms deliveries to Ukraine. And Russia's ex-president Dmitry Medvedev has said the country is ramping up production of new generation weapons to protect itself from enemies in Europe, the United States and Australia, Reuters has reported. Now, we're lucky enough to be joined this evening by Chris McCusker. Chris is a carer, an activist, a trades unionist and a human rights campaigner. Chris, good evening. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm grand. Nice to say that I'm a wee bit chilled out now, so been out in the cold all day.
Yes, I think everybody's a bit chilled out this evening, Chris, so thank you for battling on and thank you for joining us on Scotland at 7 this evening. Our top item this evening is that Unite and Unison have announced that the Scottish Government's increased pay offer has now been accepted by their NHS Scotland membership. Unite's health membership voted yes by 64% to accept the improved offer, which was tabled 2 weeks ago, following extensive talks involving the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, the Health Secretary, Humza Yousaf, NHS Scotland, and the trade unions. Unison said that 57% of their NHS members balloted have voted to accept the offer. The turnout in the digital ballot was 62%. Industrial action by Unite and Unison members in NHS Scotland has now been called off. The improved offer represents an average of 7.5% increase across NHS Scotland, with up to 11.24% for the bottom pay bands. It means salary bands 1 to 4 will receive a flat rate payment of £2,205, and salary bands 5 to 7 receiving increases ranging from £2,280 to £2,660. It also creates a new minimum wage of £11.09 per hour. The offer includes a commitment to reduce the working week from 37.5 hours to 36 hours with no loss of pay. Meanwhile, in England, UK ministers have been accused of making disingenuous and wrong claims about attempts to avert unprecedented strikes by nurses scheduled for later this week, as union leaders said the action could be called off right now if serious negotiations resumed. Union leaders in England have drawn comparison between the Scottish Government's willingness to negotiate with the unions and the UK Government's intransigence. So, Chris, firstly, Hamza Yousaf said, "I welcome Unison and Unite members accepting this record pay offer. We have engaged tirelessly with trade union representatives over recent weeks, leaving no stone unturned to reach an offer which responds to the key concerns of staff across the service." So does this show that negotiation, what Hamza Yousaf calls constructive engagement, does this show that negotiation is the way to achieve agreement and to maintain the services which people depend on?
Well, as a trade unionist, obviously, I'm bound to say that negotiation is always the best policy. The non-negotiation that you have ongoing with the Westminster government, obviously the Tory government in control, it shows that Scotland and England are chalk and cheese, and the approach. And it was something that often riled me when Richard Leonard was the erstwhile leader of Scottish Labour. He constantly said, Prime Minister, First Minister's questions, that the Scottish Government, didn't engage with trade unions. I mean, that is laughable, and I mean, I in my former post for the SNP trade union group, I mean, we always had meaningful discussions with all the unions in Scotland, and we were in close working relationship with the STUC, which is not affiliated to the Labour Party in Scotland. So again, as I say, it just highlights the fact that Scotland and England are, chalk and cheese in this matter. And now, what we would hope is that the pay deals that have been achieved and met, that they would be replicated, across the board, because it is an unfortunate outcome. Is the fact that it's indisputable that NHS workers in Scotland are paid comparatively better than their English counterparts. But we have to take this on a bit of caution, because there is ongoing ballots with the GMB, the CSP, which is the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy, and also the Royal College of Nursing, the RCN. So they're still balloting at this moment in time, and hopefully that will come to a resolution shortly.
Thanks, Chris. And one other aspect to this story this evening, as you said, the nurses' union leader praised Nicola Sturgeon for the way in which she engaged in pay talks that led to the nurses' strikes in Scotland being paused. The RCN suspended plans to take industrial action in Scotland after positive discussions with the First Minister, which included a revised pay offer. Now, Pat Cullen, who's the leader of the Royal College of Nursing, has claimed that the Westminster government has been displaying particularly macho behaviour towards the Royal College of Nursing, because she believes it sees nursing as female work that it doesn't value. In an interview with The Guardian in advance of next week's strikes, she also criticised ministers for portraying nurses as being greedy. So, do you think are Steve Barclay, the English Health Secretary, and other Westminster Tory ministers, are they simply trying to make a settlement of the pay claim by the nurses impossible?
I think that they are, and you know, every trade unionist knows that you always stake high and then work down from that, and you know, I don't think Mr. Barker understands the way that you know, trade unionism works, and you know, the denial of mediation, you know, the actual unwillingness to engage only emboldens the unions to, you know, hold out for, you know, the top of the scale. You know, the bully boy tactics simply just will not work. At the end of the day, we're talking about people who we used to clap for on a Thursday evening, and now you know, we're saying that they're not worth it. Well, you know, if they were worth it then you know, by Christ, you know, bearing in mind the fact that we are seeing sub-zero temperatures this year, you know, I think is only going to put more pressure on the health service throughout the UK. They need to settle this sooner rather than later.
Exactly, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on now, however, because the UK economy returned to growth in October as activity bounced back from the impact of the additional bank holiday for the Queen's funeral. However, a long recession is still expected. The Office for National Statistics said gross domestic product rose by 0.5% on the month, after a decline of 0.6% in September when many businesses closed their doors during the national mourning period. Car sales rebounded after a poor month amid a wider recovery in the country's dominant service sector, while there was strong growth in activity in the health sector amid a rise in GP appointments, A&E attendance, and the COVID-19 autumn booster campaign. Construction continued a strong run, driven up by house building, while manufacturing output grew. However, GDP shrank by 0.3% in the 3 months to October, reflecting concerns over the strength of the economy as consumers and businesses tightened their belts amid the highest rates of inflation for 41 years. The Bank of England said last month the economy was probably already in a recession that could last until the end of 2023. That was after GDP fell by 0.2% in the 3 months to September. Despite a recovery in October, a return to contraction in November and December could spell a second consecutive quarter of decline, the technical definition of a recession. Economists said the October figures did not alter the overall picture of a slowing UK economy. David Barrier, the head of research at the British Chambers of Commerce, said, "Business confidence has been falling dramatically as firms face into a wall of higher prices and energy bills, increased taxation, and rising borrowing costs. Unless the government helps create a stable environment to allow businesses to invest, the UK faces a long-term loss of competitiveness." Analysts also said that October's recovery in consumer spending was likely to be short-lived, despite hopes amongst retailers and hospitality firms that the World Cup in Qatar could help drive up sales during the festive season. So, Chris, as I said there, David Barrier, who's the head of research for the British Chambers of Commerce, said that business confidence has been falling dramatically as firms face into a wall of higher prices and energy bills, increased taxation, and rising borrowing costs. So, is Mr. Barrier correct? And do you think is his metaphor of businesses hitting the wall, is it the appropriate one?
I think it is actually. You know, as we see the current energy prices, and I can actually speak it, you know, with some authority here. Unfortunately, as you know, Andrew, I ran a refugee hub, and unfortunately, we had to give up the premises and hand it back because we just couldn't afford energy costs. The heating and the lighting, it just dwarfs everything. So I mean, no wonder, the retail sector, the catering sector as well, were looking forward to getting a bump from the World Cup viewing, and it has. I mean, I've witnessed, quite a lot of bars, showing the football being, really, really busy. But I mean, we also have to take into consideration the fact that the consumer price inflation has accelerated to a 41-year high of 11.1%, and that's off the back of eight consecutive price hikes by the Bank of England. The interest rate. So I can only see it going again, higher again, and it's what you have is the fact that the Tories don't believe in the sharing liquidity around. Everything has to be centralised with them, and their capitalist agenda. So, I mean, if people are, struggling in the communities, they're not spending in the communities. So, therefore, businesses are going to be contracting. And the small businesses that rely on people going out and uh, uh, buying their Christmas presents and maybe sitting down and having a coffee and stuff like that, and all these small businesses rely on people having cash in their pocket. Now I know that these days we're rolling along towards a cashless society with various apps on your phones and whatnot, what have you. But by the same token, if people's wages are getting squeezed, then the money's just not there, to start the ball rolling. So it's an ever decreasing vicious circle, one which the controlling government has to get on top of.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you. Our next item this evening is that the official statistics watchdog has reprimanded the Conservatives for claiming the UK had secured £800 billion worth in new free trade deals since leaving the EU, saying the figure includes deals rolled over from before Brexit. The UK Statistics Authority said it had written to the Tories about the infographic, shared last month by Michael Gove amongst others, also warning that the party should provide sources for such figures in the future. The Scottish National Party's trade spokesperson, Drew Hendry, wrote to the UKSA about Gove's use of the Tory graphic, which said, "We've secured new free trade deals with over 70 countries since 2016. That's over £800 billion worth of new free trade." In a letter to Drew Hendry, the department stated that it was misleading to describe the £800 billion figure as a measure of new global trade resulting from the recent deals. It also confirmed that the department has written to the Conservative Party, warning that any future communications should include a link or reference to the source of the statistics. The tweet came just days after HMRC confirmed that Brexit had reduced Scotland's exports by £2.2 billion over the past year. That's about 13%. Commenting, Drew Hendry MP said, "This letter has confirmed what we suspected. Michael Gove has been spreading misleading and completely inaccurate statistics on social media. Brexit has and will continue to be an unmitigated disaster for households and businesses across these islands, reducing Scottish exports by a staggering £2.2 billion in the last year alone." So, Chris, under the principles of intelligent transparency, we would expect the infographic to include a source for the figure so that the public can verify the numbers, understand the definitions, and put the data into context, said the chair of the UK Statistics Authority, Sir Robert Choate. And that was in his letter in reply to Drew Hendry. So, principles of intelligent transparency. Since when did anything resembling principles have anything to do with UK government communications?
Yeah, precisely. I mean, they have got form for this, and we know that we've got form for this. And they constantly spout out that and this happened off the back of Brexit. I mean, so many lies just lies. I mean, there's no other word in the English dictionary for it. It's just simply lies. It's untrue. You know the Brexit bus and the trade deals that they were going to get, the migrants, that horrible poster portrayed by Nigel Farage. It's all just lies. It's simply lies. And what's more shocking, funnily enough, actually, I caught a small snippet of the House of Commons before we came on air, and the Australia New Zealand deal is going to a third reading, despite SNP and Labour amendments and stuff like that. They are ploughing on through with this deal, this trade deal that nobody wants. I mean, Drew Henry made the point just before we came on air that the UK government were asking when are the SNP going to actually get on board with the trade deal, and Drew Henry made the point and saying, well, when are the UK government ever going to concede to an SNP amendment? It's simply their way or the highway, and uh, uh, truth doesn't come into it. They would sell their granny in order to get their point across, and just plough on completely regardless. And the fallout from that is like the trade deals that don't match up to what we had with the EU. And again, they're still in denial about that, and they'll probably be in denial, till kingdom come, because there's no way that Britain is going to rejoin the European Union, and the only way that Scotland can do so is to be independent.
Of course, Chris, absolutely. Thank you. Now then, let's move on to our next item, because the UK government is facing a fresh challenge in the courts over plans to award up to 130 new licences for North Sea oil and gas exploration, in the latest attempt to stop ministers' proposed expansion of the country's fossil fuel production. 3 campaign groups have written to the Business Secretary, Grant Shapps, explaining the grounds on which they consider the latest offshore oil and gas licensing round to be unlawful. They call for the decision to award the new licences to be reversed, arguing that new oil and gas exploration and development is incompatible with the UK's own rules and international climate obligations. Ministers are also expected to face a legal challenge soon to the decision last week to give the go-ahead to the UK's first new coal mine for 30 years at Whitehaven in Cumbria. Phil Evans, an oil and gas campaigner at Greenpeace, accused the government of attempting to justify unnecessary fossil fuel expansion on the basis that the production facilities would not produce much carbon dioxide, rather than examining the impacts of burning the fuel produced. Ministers have claimed that the Cumbrian coal mine would be net zero in terms of greenhouse gases from mining the coal, but this ignores the emissions from burning the coal that's been produced. Similarly, the North Sea oil and gas expansion has been defended as necessary to solve the UK's energy crisis, but little new gas is likely to be produced for the next decade at least, and will not reduce UK gas prices. The UK summit hosted the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow last year, where nations agreed to focus on limiting global temperature rises to 1.5 degrees C above pre-industrial levels, but failed to bring forward the stringent measures needed to meet that goal. Since then, however, the UK's international leadership on the climate has been called into question after a string of decisions, including new North Sea licences, the new coal mine, cash for fossil fuel projects in developing countries, and further slashing of overseas aid. Most UK oil and gas production is in Scottish waters, and the Scottish Government has opposed the new exploration licences, calling instead for investment in renewable energy technologies. So, Chris, the North Sea oil and gas expansion has been defended as necessary to solve the UK's energy crisis, but little gas will be produced for at least a decade and will not reduce UK gas prices now. When it comes to carbon, our planning system has a major blind spot, said Phil Evans, who I mentioned as an oil and gas campaigner at Greenpeace. He said ministers keep greenlighting new fossil fuel projects without fully considering the climate-wrecking emissions from burning those fuels. So, Chris, why do you think there's a rush to license oil and gas exploration now when it's going to be at least 10 years before any gas is even produced?
Well, I think I alluded to this last week, as that the Tories love the profits that they can be achieved from fossil fuel. The profits on the oil and gas are significantly higher than what the profits are from renewable energy. I mean, I'm convinced that this is why they are wanting to get these licenses committed and start production as soon as possible. I mean, obviously, you make the point that it won't be immediately beneficial to us. So, what's the point in doing it? I mean, at the end of the day, what we have to weigh up in the balance is, the overarching factor of global warming. And I mean, I know it's cold consolation at the moment to say that the world is getting warmer, but we only have to look back at last summer. And make comparisons of 10 years previous to that. Where our summers are getting substantially warmer, and it is sort of like the 2 months, well, maybe 3 months, November, December, January, that we're obviously witnessing a cold climate. But again, it's obfuscation and lies again from the Tory party. I get and taking one point in question, the new mine that they propose to open in Cumbria, they are trying to sell that to the UK electorate as being environmentally friendly because it's coking coal. It's not your normal coal that you would put into your fire. It's coking coal. But by the same token, when that coal's put into the furnace, when they go to manufacture steel, it's still going to produce emissions. And so I mean,
Absolutely, Chris.
again, it's just lies in order to get what they want.
Of course, Chris. Thank you. Now then, Iran has publicly hanged a man accused of killing two members of the security forces in its second use of capital punishment against anti-government protesters. Majid Reza Ranavar's family were woken early this morning to be informed that he had been executed and that his body had been buried in a lot in the local cemetery. Ranavard, a 23-year-old wrestler, had been sentenced to death by a court in the city of Mashhad for allegedly killing two members of the Basij volunteer force and wounding four others. The Basij force, affiliated with the country's Revolutionary Guards, has been at the forefront of the state crackdown on protests. The judiciary's Mizan news agency reported that he was arrested on the 19th of November while trying to flee the country. Mizan published a collage of images of Ranavard hanging from a crane, his hands and feet bound, and a black bag over his head. Masked security force members stood guard in front of a concrete and metal barriers that held back a gathered crowd early this morning. His execution underscores the speed at which Iran now carries out death sentences handed down for those detained in the demonstrations. Iranian media has printed the names of 25 other people who also face the death sentence in relation to the protests, which were sparked by the death in custody of Mahsa Amini, a Kurdish Iranian woman arrested by the morality police for allegedly breaching the country's strict dress code for women. The protests, described by authorities as riots, represent the biggest challenge to the regime since the Shah's ouster in 1979. At least 488 people have been killed since the demonstrations began in mid-September, according to human rights activists in Iran, a group that has been monitoring the protests. Another 18,200 people have been detained by the authorities. So, Chris, as I say, Mizan published pictures of the execution at dawn, showing the young man Ranavard hanging from a construction crane, his hands and feet bound, and his head covered with a black bag. So this was a public execution. Is this about deterrence or retribution or something else, do you think?
I think it's I think it's to do with deterrence more than anything, rather than retribution. I think that the way that the authorities carry out these sentences in public is to send a message to other activists that their behaviour won't be tolerated. It's a very, very strict regime. Obviously, one step towards authoritarianism. But it's one that's really hard to comment on because to question another country's shall we say judicial system. It could lead to all sorts of ramifications. And the advent of social media and the likes. But what we do know is that it seems to be the way is that they have a set of laws, and if anyone is found contravening them, regardless of mitigating circumstances, that it seems to me that there is not much trial. It's straight to the verdict, and 9 times out of 10 the verdicts are always end up with a execution. Sadly,
it's very, very, very swift. You're absolutely right, Chris. Thank you. Now then, we'll move to the United States for our next item, because the Biden administration has been saying all the right things lately about respecting a free and vigorous press after 4 years of relentless media bashing and legal assaults under Donald Trump. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has even put in place expanded protections for journalists this autumn, saying that a free and independent press is vital to the functioning of our democracy. But the biggest test of Biden's commitment remains imprisoned in a jail cell in London, where the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been held since 2019, while facing prosecution in the United States under the Espionage Act, a century-old statute that has never been used before in respect of publishing classified information. Whether the US Justice Department continues to pursue the Trump-era charges against the notorious leaker, whose group put out secret information on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, Guantanamo Bay, American diplomacy, and internal democratic politics before the 2016 election, will go a long way to determining whether the current administration intends to make good on its pledges to protect the press. Now Biden is facing a re-energized push, both inside the United States and overseas, to drop Assange's protracted prosecution. 5 major media organizations that relied on his trove of government secrets, including The Guardian and The New York Times, put out an open letter earlier this month, saying that his indictment sets a dangerous precedent and threatens to undermine the First Amendment. At the same time, officials in Australia, where Assange was born and remains a citizen, met with American counterparts to appeal for his release. My position is clear and has been made clear to the US administration that it is time for this matter to be brought to a close, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese told the Australian Parliament late last month. Some of Assange's defenders, who have attacked his prosecution as a trampling of the First Amendment, say they are optimistic that the case may have reached a turning point that could ultimately lead to his freedom. So, Chris, the Justice Department declined to comment on all of the outside calls to drop the case, but one official speaking on condition of anonymity said that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has made clear that he will follow the law wherever it leads, as he has in other politically charged cases. So do you think, is that the right approach by the Attorney General?
I don't actually think that it is the right approach. To be fair, everybody, and Julian Assange aside, when I say everybody, I think everybody has the right to free speech. However, that free speech has to be, delivered in the right fashion. But what we are seeing here is the fact that his choice to leak sensitive documents, for what benefit, to whose benefit? I think we've all benefited from the information, but why did he do it in the first place? Why did he, seek to, make this information public knowledge? Yeah, I do agree that the fact that the whole case has rumbled on so long, and I fail to see, why he's still incarcerated. When quite clearly he is a citizen of he is a citizen of a free state. So I mean, that in itself should, at least set precedent. I mean, okay, it could be incarcerated, but it could be in either Australia or New Zealand. I mean, this must be still costing the British judicial system some amount of money, to be involved in this case. So if there's any signal for a quick resolution to this, I would welcome it.
Of course, Chris. Thank you. Now then, a new lung cancer diagnostic service will help ensure patients receive faster access to treatment. Lung cancer is Scotland's most common cancer, and the new service will ensure a faster process to help reduce patient anxiety as they and their families wait for a diagnosis. It will also reduce the risk of cancer growing or spreading and the risk of patients being unfit for effective treatment. The redesigned services set timeframes for each step to enable a patient's diagnosis by day 21 after referral and treatment for most to start by day 42, which is significantly more ambitious than current cancer waiting times standards. Health boards will use the money to realign services so patients can receive multiple tests, where clinically appropriate, at the one time and reduce their visits to hospital and speed up diagnosis. The nationally developed lung cancer pathway, led by the Centre for Sustainable Delivery, is the first to be developed in Scotland and is being funded by £3 million from the Scottish Government's Detect Cancer Earlier programme. The Health Secretary Humza Yousaf MSP said lung cancer is the most common cancer in Scotland, with around 5,500 cases diagnosed each year. The number of new cases is predicted to increase by 29% for women and 12% for men by 2027. That's why we have to do as much as we can to tackle the disease. He went on, this redesign means faster and more efficient treatment for lung cancer patients. Even in advanced disease, newer treatments have improved patient outcomes, but are highly dependent upon the patient remaining fit enough to receive those treatments. So, Chris, the redesigned services set timeframes for each step. A diagnosis by day 21 after referral and treatment for most to start by day 42, which is significantly more ambitious than current cancer waiting time standards. Is the Scottish NHS right to be ambitious at this time?
I think they've got every right to be ambitious, but I would hope that they would try and at least live up to their targets as they are at this moment in time. We should always be setting new targets, and heart, lung, and liver issues, are prevalent in Scottish society for the last nigh on 50 years. Just a state of, how people are living. But there have been huge strides made. I lost my mum to cancer. That was over 30 years ago. But now you hear anecdotally that the survival rates, if caught early, are substantially higher. So again, it's right that they should set targets, but I think the targets should have to be achievable. Because when we set targets too high, it always sets the Scottish Government up for a fall to get bashed either by the Tories or by the Labour Party. So I think targets, yeah, fine, fair play, but there's 1,001 other things that I've got targets that we should be trying to achieve, and I think we'll get that. Because we have got a fantastic NHS system in Scotland. I use it every week and stuff like that when I'm looking after my elder brother, and I just can't sing their praises high enough.
That's good to hear, Chris. Thank you. Now, PwC's latest Green Jobs Barometer shows that Scotland leads the UK again as the green jobs boom accelerates. Responding, the Minister for Just Transition, Employment and Fair Work, Richard Lochhead MSP, said, "This latest report clearly shows Scotland's green jobs revolution is underway and highlights the growth of Scotland's green economy. Scotland is perfectly placed to lead the development of a green energy revolution. We're already at the forefront of the global development of floating offshore wind, as well as being world leaders in wave and tidal energy technologies. Others, such as hydrogen, also promise to be game changers for our economy." In the last couple of weeks alone, there have been announcements of 600 new green jobs being created following the launch of a Scottish carbon capture project and the awarding of contracts to support the construction of Scotland's largest offshore wind farm. Recently, new research from the Universities of Warwick and Strathclyde provided an initial upper estimate that up to 100,000 roles in Scotland are new and emerging green jobs. So Chris, Matthew Hall, who's the net zero leader for PwC Scotland, said, "The findings from our Green Jobs Barometer highlight the significant opportunity for Scotland's labour market. This opportunity will not happen by itself, however. Having seen the passion around COP26 in Glasgow last year, the will to deliver is absolutely there, but we need targeted investment, training and policies, and collaboration between government, business and education providers so that a green future delivers fair opportunities for everyone." So, Chris, is Matthew Hall right that we need collaboration between government, business and education to deliver a fair opportunity in a green future for everybody?
Yeah, we do, it's not often that you'll hear me, sounding like Douglas Ross, but whilst we're in this, union, we need, both governments to be working on this, and it's what with people who loyal listeners that have tuned in for the last couple of years have often heard me said about talking about the just transition, the green just transition from fossil fuels to green jobs in the renewable sector. But it won't just happen because the Scottish Government wish it. It needs inward investment, and unfortunately, we all know who controls the levers of inward investment. So there has to be greater collaboration between Westminster Government and Scottish Government, to be able to, invest in these initiatives. so that we can actually, grow the green jobs that are obviously needed going forward, because uh, the desire of the Scottish government is, not to create an imbalance between the fossil fuel industry and the green technology industry. It's what the First Minister has always said, is the fact that it's a natural reducement in fossil fuels, and a higher escalation of green renewable industries, which will create the jobs for the people in the fossil fuel industry to transition over to. And that was not
Absolutely, Chris.
that was never done. Back in the 70s and 80s, when they shut down the coal yards and the steel yards and all the rest of it. So I mean, it's definitely the way to go.
Thank you, Chris. Now, plans to offer added protection to Scotland's precious marine biodiversity have been set out. Views are being sought on proposals that would make Scotland the first country in the world to designate at least 10% of its seas as highly protected marine areas. Scottish ministers have also announced their intention to permanently designate the Red Rocks and Longay Marine Protected Area, which is within the Inner Sounds of Skye, the largest nursery area for the critically endangered flapper skate. HPMAs are designed to provide the highest environmental protection from activities such as fishing and aquaculture, as well as infrastructure developments such as new ports, harbours, and offshore wind farms. Consultation feedback will shape the creation of the HPMA network, which is a key Butte House Agreement and Programme for Government 22-23 commitment. Launching the plans during the COP15 Biodiversity Summit, the Environment Minister, Barry McCallion, said, "Scotland has some of the most beautiful and diverse marine ecosystems on the planet, and we are committed to saving them. As we develop this landmark HPMA network consultation, I would urge everyone with an interest in our precious marine environment, blue economy, and coastal communities to take part." So, Chris, designating at least 10% of Scotland's sea areas as highly protected marine areas is part of the Butte House Agreement and is reflected in the programme for government this year. So, do you think is this latest announcement of the consultation, is it a sign that the Greens are making headway in Scottish politics, working with the Scottish government?
Yeah, and I've always said that the Greens have got a valuable input, to add to Scottish government, and it does naturally take the Green Party to bring these issues to the fore. They're never on the front page of a Labour manifesto or a Tory manifesto or even an SNP manifesto for that matter. So I mean, obviously, the Greens have got a wee niche corner there. But I mean, the Scottish minister's absolutely right. I mean, Scotland's a beautiful country when it's not Baltic. That is. I mean, I remember as a kid, getting up to Oban and stuff like that. Just to go and watch the basking sharks and think, thinking, that's a wonderful thing to see. Just stand on the end of the pier and just watch them, diving up and down and stuff like that. Seals and whales and it's on a beautiful day. There is nothing better, to peer into the water and you can see the fish, actually swimming at your feet and stuff like that. Yeah. So if they can do anything which is going to enhance that, and obviously protect the coastlines as well, which I think need, shall we say, a tad more reinvestment, when it comes to, the likes of litter picking and stuff like that and all the rest of it. then obviously that benefits the tourism industry. Because as you know, people just love to flock down to the coast and stuff like that on a nice day, and take a walk along the prom, and and actually having to look at something pleasant rather than a pile of plastic that's washed up on the seashore and stuff like that. So I think,
Beach.
yeah, it has to be welcomed.
Thanks, Chris. And now our final item this evening is that artwork from a Glasgow primary school pupil has been unveiled as the First Minister's 2022 Christmas card. Children at Sunnyside Primary School in Craigend were tasked with creating a festive design that centres around the school's campaigning for climate action. The winning design, which you can see here, was created by the Primary 5 pupil Evita Yee, who's aged 9, and features a colourful snow globe with the words, "The future is in our hands." Sunnyside has created and run many successful climate campaigns and recently started the Running Out of Time relay. The First Minister welcomed the baton from the relay to COP27 in Egypt after it made its way through 18 countries on a 4,800-mile journey. The First Minister said, "I'd like to congratulate Evita and all the pupils at Sunnyside for their striking and creative designs. Climate change is already having a massive impact around the world, and if we don't take the right action, things will only get worse." Chris, the First Minister went on to say, "I've been hugely impressed to hear about the actions pupils at Sunnyside have been taking, and I want to thank each and every one of them for getting involved with such enthusiasm in the most important issue facing our world." So do you think, as this artwork and all the activism that we're seeing from the pupils at Sunnyside Primary, is it more evidence that young people really get the climate crisis and they are determined to make sure that the future is in their hands?
They do, yes, they undoubtedly do. But again, we have to congratulate their teachers as well. For actively encouraging them to, think globally and think out the box and stuff like that. Think what the environment means to them. So I mean, the excellent teachers that we have in Scotland, deserve equal praise for this as well. But the young girl's imagination, is it's neatly done with the two hands holding the world. I think it shows great creativity, and what an endorsement, to actually get the First Minister to, take out, your Christmas card and, and give it that validation. I don't think I'll get one this year, but there we go.
Well, whether or not you receive cards, I was also in Christmas card news. I was going to ask you, have you posted your Christmas cards yet, Chris? Because today is the
I
last day for posting second class, and Friday is the last day for posting first class.
Yeah, I'm really quite terrible. Being an old socialist, I don't give in to, a lot of the corporate consumerism surrounding Christmas. I begrudgingly bought myself a tree this year. I mean, that's the first time in 10 years that I've actually bought a new tree. And I mean, I grudged even paying 22.50 at Home Bargains for it, but I done it so that I don't get grief off of my kids when they come round. Because we're actually celebrating Christmas next week. Because my youngest boy's going to Poland and the eldest boy's got other plans. So, I just thought I better do it and save myself all the grief and what have you. So, yesterday I spent the day through the tears of my eyes, England's defeat at the World Cup. I decided to, I will get this place, bedecked, with the bells of holly routine, so.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that Christmas is coming to the McCusker household as well this year. That's great to hear,
Well, it
Chris, and
definitely
thank
will.
you.
I mean, the old cooking skills will be brought into play, and we'll have hopefully a three-courser. We'll trim it down from last year.
Right.
We had a five-courser last year, but we'll trim it down to a three-courser this year, and I'll probably just end up with a TV dinner on my own on Christmas Day.
Sounds like it, but have a lovely celebration with the family next week when it arrives. But
Yeah,
I'm
we'll do.
afraid to
Thanks.
say,
Thanks.
thanks, Chris, but I'm afraid to say that's all that we have time for this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs, and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station, and to make new programmes for you. Our programmes will always be free to view, but if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target of adding 10,000 new supporters to enable us to employ staff to make more programmes. To everyone who has donated and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment as a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, thank you very much. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Please like and retweet us there. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. When you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you would like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. Click on the little bell. Now, we will be back tomorrow evening at 7 with the next edition of Scotland at 7, so please come back and join us then. And I'd like to thank everyone who's been watching this evening, and I'd like to give a very special thanks to our very special guest, Chris McCusker. Thanks, Chris.
It's been an absolute pleasure as usual, Andrew. Thanks very much for inviting me on.
Thanks for joining us. Now, on this day in 2019, we saw the first December general election in more than a century. Boris Johnson was returned to power, and the SNP rebounded from the results of the 2017 general election. Nicola Sturgeon said there was a renewed, refreshed, and strengthened mandate for a second independence referendum as her party made big gains across Scotland. I hope that you have a very peaceful evening, and please keep safe and stay warm. Bye bye.